Hello everyone, today we're going to be going over how to make Pogo the Frog here. This is not a completely beginner's tutorial because I do not go over how to do the stitches, but I do go through how to do this pattern. I will list the stitches in a minute and then you can look up how to do them and refer back to this video. If you do want a PDF pattern, I do have it available for purchase and the details are in the description below. So with this pattern, you are able to really use whatever yarn you feel more comfortable with. I use Sweet Snuggles Light from Chenille Home Slim, but here I also have it in Bernat Blanket, which is another good option for a plush yarn for beginners. And then I also, if I do things in a thinner yarn, I will use cotton over acrylic. It's just what I prefer. But here I use the Just Premier cotton from the Dollar Tree. So there's a lot of different price ranges that you can utilize to make this project. So for the materials, again, you can use your preferred yarn type. And then you'll need Poly-Fil or Fiber-Fill to stuff your plushie. Then I use 18mm eyes. Again, you'll want to adjust these depending on the yarn you use. Scissors, then stitch markers. I like to use 2 that are the same color. And then a tapestry needle as well as your crochet hook. Again, whatever your preferred hook size is, I use a 4mm. For this pattern, you need to know how to do a magic circle or a magic ring, how to identify stitches, how to do a slip stitch, chain, single crochet, increase, decrease, and whenever I do a decrease, it is actually an invisible decrease. Understand sequences, and how to count stitches to make sure you have the right number at the end of the row, how to identify the front loop only and the back loop only, and then fasten off at the end of your project. During this tutorial, you will want to pause the video as I go, so we are going to start with the front 2 legs, and again, I'll kind of speed through different rows just because it is repetitive, so just make sure you have it on hand to pause as you go or to rewind if you need to watch something again. So we're starting off with a magic circle of 4, and that's just gonna be single crochet. Now we're going to pull tight, and just be careful if you are working with chenille yarn, it can be a little tricky. And now we're going to start row 2. So this row includes the toes. So for the first stitch, we are going to increase, which means we are putting 2 single crochet in the same stitch. And then we are going to be working in the front loop only of the next stitch, and this is where all 3 toes go, in the same front loop only. It can be a bit tricky to find the back loop of this stitch for row 3, so I do recommend getting a stitch marker and putting it in that back loop of this stitch just to make it easier on yourself and easier to find for row 3. So once that's placed, we are going to chain 3, and then we are going to slip stitch down the chain twice. And then we are going to go in that same front loop only and single crochet then we'll chain 3, then slip stitch down that chain twice. And we'll repeat that one more time. So single crochet in the same front loop only, chain 3, slip stitch down the chain, and then to complete the toes, we are going to do one last single crochet in that same front loop only. This just keeps it more balanced for the foot. And then we're going to finish the row by increasing 2 more times. So this next stitch we will increase, so put 2 single crochet in 1 stitch. Then in the next stitch we'll increase again by putting 2 single crochet in 1 stitch. And that completes row 2. So for row 3, we're gonna do 2 single crochet. Then we're going to increase in the back loop only of that toe. So again, where we put our stitch marker. And then we are going to finish the row with 4 single crochet. It can be a bit tricky to figure out what stitch you're supposed to go into. So if I'm having trouble, I'll just count backwards 8, because that's how many stitches I should have in my row. And that lets me know which stitch I need to place my hook into, because I counted 8 stitches from my hook. So again, finishing row 3 is just 4 single crochet. So at this point, I want to double check that I still only have 8 stitches in this row, because if I have more or less, I know I went in the wrong stitch after the toes. And from here on, we are going to single crochet for the next 4 rounds. So I am going to speed up the video a bit to show all 4 rounds, and again, you're just going 8 single crochet for rows 4 through 7. So now that we have completed rows 4 through 7, we are going to lightly stuff the leg. This is a pretty small piece, so you're not going to need a lot of stuffing. And we don't want to overstuff it, because then it will kind of protrude out from the body, and we want it to lay nicely against the body. So now we are going to finish off the leg with row 8, and we are just going to decrease 4 times, which again, this is an invisible decrease, and you do this by taking the front loop of 2 stitches on your hook, yarning over and pulling through those, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. If you need a better tutorial on how to do an invisible decrease, I would recommend looking it up. There's many great tutorials on how to do this. Once we have finished row 8, we are going to fasten off, and you do want to leave some of a thread to sew onto the body. And typically when you are determining how much you need, a general rule of thumb is 2 to 2.5 times the length of what you are sewing. So that is what I'm doing here. I'm just roughly measuring out 2 to 3 lengths of what I'm sewing. With chenille yarn, it is a bit tricky, so I usually do a bit more than what is necessary, just in case the thread is giving me, or the yarn is giving me, a hard time. So fastening off by pulling the yarn through, and now we are going to sew the leg closed. And when I do this, I do prefer to go through the front loops only and sew just that closed. So I'll show you here. I'll insert my needle through the front loop only, going out in, and then going from the inside out of that front loop only. And you can quickly do this like that and pull through. Again, it's a small piece, so that's all you need. I like to finish it off with a knot. This is just a personal preference because chenille yarn is a bit slippery, so I'm always nervous it can come apart. So now that we have that one, pause the video or return back and make a second one. Now we're going to do the back legs, and again we are going to make 2 of them. So we are starting off just exactly the same as the front legs. So we're doing a magic circle of 4. For row 2, we are going to increase in that first stitch. Then we are going to go through just the front loop only for the toes. Again, have a stitch marker ready to put in the back loop only of this stitch. So then from here, we've just done the single crochet, so we are going to chain 3, then slip stitch down the chain. So in the stitch or the chain next to the hook, slip stitch, the next chain, slip stitch, and then we are going to single crochet in the same front loop that we just used. And we will repeat again, chain 3, slip stitch down the chain, single crochet in that same front loop only, chain 3, slip stitch down the chain, and then close this section off with one more single crochet in that same front loop only, and then finishing off the row with 2 increase. For row 3, we are going to do 2 single crochet. Then in the back loop of the toes, we are going to increase, which is where we put our stitch marker. And then we are going to finish off the row with 4 single crochet. Again, if you're having a hard time finding what stitch you should go into, just count 8 single crochet from your hook and insert there. Double check that you still only have 8 single crochet. Then we are going to do the rest of the leg, and it's going to be 8 single crochet for 12 rounds, so rows 4 through 15. But we are going to take a pause after row 7 to stuff the front part of the leg. So again, we are going to take a pause and we are going to lightly stuff the leg. Again, you don't need a lot of stuffing because it is a smaller piece, and we don't want to overstuff this part because we are going to continue single crocheting, but that part of the leg is going to be bent over. So just stuff this, and then we are going to continue single crocheting 8 stitches around till we get to row 15. Now that we are at row 15, I'm going to bend the leg over and I'm going to stuff the back part of this leg lightly, because if it's overstuffed, it won't fold over as easily. Once I feel good about the stuffing, then I will continue, but I do want to show you the difference in what we're doing with the front leg and the back leg. So the front leg is going to have that bump on the top, whereas the back leg is going to have the bump on the bottom, because when we fold it over, the toes should kind of lay flat. So we're finishing off this row with 4 decreases. Again, I use an invisible decrease. So now I am going to determine how much yarn I need to sew, which is about 2.5 to 3 times the length of the area you are sewing, which is gonna just be on the side of one of the legs, essentially. I'm kind of doing it very roughly, but I do leave extra just because I've had bad luck with chenille yarn, so I want to have plenty of room to be able to sew my project. And once we've pulled the yarn through, we are going to sew it closed with the same method we used for the front legs, where I insert my hook, or sorry, my tapestry needle just through the front loops only, and I just weave in and out to sew it closed. Again, I will do a knot at the end just to have a little more stability or security. And then we are going to kind of sew this piece together, bent, so it's easier to sew at the end. So we're gonna go insert our hook and go down about 2 rows, fold it over, and then we're going to insert our hook towards the foot, or where the toes are, and go in about 2 stitches, which is what I'm showing here. Pull your yarn through, and then we are going to go back in that same stitch we went in initially and back out to the end of the leg. You can do another knot here, but I don't usually find it necessary. If you stuffed it correctly, then you shouldn't have too much tension trying to undo it. So again, pause this and go back to make a second leg. For the body, I do recommend having 3 stitch markers or pieces of yarn to help keep track. So I use my stitch marker at the beginning or the first stitch of each row. Everyone's a little different, so whatever your preferences is. But we are going to start the body off with a magic circle of 8. And we'll pull that through. Sometimes with chenille yarn, it's a bit tricky, so I sometimes will do 6 single crochet in my magic ring and then pull it tight and do the rest, but do whatever feels comfortable. For round 2, we are going to increase 8 times. So in each stitch, we are increasing for row 2. For row 3, we are going to single crochet, then we will increase in the next stitch, and we will repeat that for a total of 8 times. And you will have 24 stitches at the end of this row. For row 4, we are going to start staggering our increases. You'll find this commonly with Amigurumi, but we are going to single crochet, then increase. Following that, we are going to do 2 single crochet, increase, and do that sequence 7 times. So again, 2 single crochet, increase 7 times, and then we will finish off with a single crochet to get a total of 32 stitches at the end of this row. You'll see that I kind of stretch out my piece at the end of some of these rows just because my tension was really tight today, so I just want it to lay more flat than a cone, so that is why I am kind of stretching it out periodically. For row 5, we are doing 3 single crochet and then increase. And we'll repeat that for a total of 8 times, and we'll have 40 stitches at the end of this row. For row 6, again, this is going to be a row where we stagger our increase. So we are going to do 2 single crochet, increase, then 4 single crochet, increase, and do that sequence 7 times, and then we'll end with 2 single crochet. Once we've done that, we are going to do 2 rounds of single crochet, so 48 single crochet for rows 7 and 8. So now you can see that it has started to round off, and for round 9, this is where we are going to start making the nose/mouth. So we are going to do 20 single crochet, then we'll increase 8 times, then follow the rest of the row for 20 single crochet, and you should have a total of 56 stitches at the end of this row. So once we've done the 20 single crochet, we are going to put in a stitch marker at the beginning of our increases, because this will help us find where we want to put the eyes, because I put them exactly where these stitch markers are. I like the placement. So this just makes it that much easier to find where your increases do start, so that you don't accidentally put them a little bit off of your increases. So we'll do one at the beginning of your increases, and then another stitch marker or yarn at the end of the 8 increases. And once we've done that, we will finish row 9 with 20 single crochet. For row 10, we are going to do 56 single crochet. So just single crochet in every stitch for round 10. For round 11, we are going to start decreasing. So we are going to do 5 single crochet, then decrease, and we will do that 8 times for a total of 48 stitches. Again, when I am doing a decrease, I'm actually doing an invisible decrease, where I just take the front loop only of 2 stitches and decrease those together. For row 12, we are gonna kind of think of this row in 3 different sections. So we are going to do 2 single crochet, then decrease 4 times that sequence. And then we are going to do 8 decrease, which is where our mouth/nose area is. And then for that 3rd section, we are going to decrease 2 single crochet 4 times that sequence. So at the end of row 12, this is what your frog body should look like. There should be a distinct area where you can see it goes out for the mouth/nose. And then we are going to do row 13, and we are going to do a single crochet, then decrease. Then we're going to do a sequence of 2 single crochet, decrease 7 times, and finish it off with a single crochet for a total of 24 stitches at the end of this row. For row 14, we are doing 2 single crochet, decrease, and we're doing that sequence 6 times for a total of 18 stitches at the end of row 14. Now that we have 18 stitches, we are going to now place the eyes. And again, we are going to use our stitch markers as a reference of where we are putting the safety eyes. They're going to be on rows 8, about row 8, and then I usually have 3 to 4 stitches in between the eyes. Now we're going to stuff the body, and we want to make sure that we don't overstuff it because we definitely want it to look more flat rather than a round ball. But you do want to make sure that you're stuffing the face, because if you don't stuff the face, it'll look kind of wonky. So just take your time when you are stuffing to make sure you're stuffing the face but not overstuffing the body. And once you're done stuffing, you will kind of shape it a little bit. At least I like to, just to make sure I have stuffed it properly. And you want to feel around to make sure you're not missing any big lumps or anything like that. Now we're going to finish off our frog body with row 15, and we are going to do a single crochet, then a decrease, and we do that sequence 6 times for a total of 12 stitches at the end of this row. With this row, this is typically where I like to finish, but some people like to go a bit smaller for sewing their plushies closed. So if you do want to have a smaller piece to sew closed, you will just do 1 more row and it will be 6 decreases. So then you'll only have 6 single crochet or 6 stitches at the end of row 16. But again, my preference is just to have the 12 stitches and to sew it closed. And we're gonna use the same method we used with the legs. So I'm going to go in just the front loop only from the outside, going in, and then I'm going to go back out that next stitch for the front loop only, and I will repeat that all the way around. And you can kind of see, you can just kind of weave it in those front loops fairly quickly. If you are using chenille yarn, you are going to want to tug a little bit as you go, because if you wait till the very end to pull it closed, sometimes it can get snagged and it makes it very difficult to actually fully close your project. So just as you go, lightly pull until you get to the end, and you'll pull tightly to close off your project. Again, I like to add one more knot. It doesn't feel like there's a knot when you do this, if you're worried about that, but some people, when they are done with fastening off and sewing closed, they will just go in and then they'll weave in their ends through the stitches. But I like to completely knot it off with the extra yarn from the magic circle. So I just kind of sweep in my hook and grab that yarn. Sometimes it does pull a little bit of stuffing, but usually it's only a little bit. It's never been that big of a deal for me. But again, you can use the method of just going in and then weaving in your ends versus doing what I'm doing here. When you are doing this method, you do want to be extra sure that you are indeed in the same stitch as both threads or both pieces of yarn, because if you're not, then your knot will lay on top of your project, and that is a bit noticeable. So you just want to make sure you are in the same exact stitch before you start knotting it off. Then I'll just cut off the extra ends and I will pull it through with my hook. Now you are done with the body, and we will start the process of sewing everything together. For sewing on the legs, it is helpful if you have a flat surface to work on, and we are going to kind of piece together the legs to see where they are going to go. Your back legs should kind of line up with your eyes, just on the opposite side, and then the front legs are just going to go off to the side. Again, with the front legs, we are going to want that bump on the top versus on the bottom like we had it with the back legs. If you have Ami sticks or a knitting needle, it does make this process a little bit easier. But if you don't have that, I like to use a stitch marker just to kind of indicate where I want to begin. And it is easier for me to reference so that I don't make that front part of the back leg go too far down or too far up, so that it does indeed sit kind of flat. As we sew this leg on, we are going to go along the back, over to the front, and down the bottom. So it kind of makes this triangle shape. And when we do sew, we are not going to individually sew each row or each stitch. I do kind of jump around about every 2 rows. So again, I'm going to insert about where that stitch marker is, and then I'm gonna go in my leg and go up about 2 rows, and then I'm gonna go back into the body, go up 2 rows, and just kind of repeat that process as I go around. You don't want to be pulling the yarn too tight because that'll scrunch up the rows, but as you see here, as I get to the top, I'm not completely securing the very top to the body so that it has a bit more dimension. I'll just kind of go over to the other side of the leg and start going down. If you're working on the flat surface, this will help to keep it more level. And we'll just go down this way to the bottom. And then I'm gonna grab a stitch from the outside of the foot, or I guess the inside of the foot that's against the body. And then I'm gonna insert my hook back essentially where that same, or that stitch marker is. And we are going to go kind of tack the very end of the leg so it looks a little more seamless, or that it is indeed just part of the body. And again, you can go into the body and weave in your ends, but I like to secure it with a knot, so I'm just gonna go in the body about halfway point where the other leg I can secure it to. So again, as we do the second leg, you're kind of gonna have to piece things together just to make sure everything lines up. And I'm gonna repeat the same process that I did with the other leg. So again, we're just gonna tack the very end of the leg to make it seem more a part of the body. And then I'm going to have the yarn go to the other leg's end and just make sure that you are in the same stitch before you knot it off. And I also like to put it down just to make sure before I fasten it off that it does indeed match, because if I knot it here and it's not quite matching, it makes it very difficult to go back and fix that. So for the front leg, I'm gonna have it just barely going over the back toes, and we're gonna try and follow that same row that we did for the back leg. So I'm gonna go into the body, and I like to work from the bottom, and then I'll go up and around on the inside. Now, you do want to make sure that you don't accidentally twist the leg as you sew. It's very easy to do that. So again, working on a flat surface, you'll kind of see I go out of frame a bit. I usually kind of use my body to anchor it, and I didn't have anything to lean this against, so it made it a little difficult to keep it in frame. But you can see I only go about halfway down the leg before I go up and start stitching back. I like to leave a little bit out just because I think it looks a little cuter, but you can secure it all the way if you feel more comfortable doing so. Again, we are going to take the very end of that leg and sew it down just so it seems more part of the body. I'm gonna go in a random stitch and repeat the process for the second front leg, and then I will secure it from there. And that is it. You have now completed your Pogo the Frog, and I kind of will squish him down a little bit because after sewing he does get a little misshapen, but you can add a couple more details like an eyelid or some blush or even some nostrils as an additional detail. Thank you so much for watching. Please tag me in your finished versions. I would love to see them. And if you are wanting a PDF version, it is available for purchase, and the details are below in the description. Thank you. Bye.